I've been reading Valalar's teachings. Can you explain why Jiva Karunyam, compassion for living beings, is considered so important?
Of course, Valalar says that to receive God's grace, the essential path is Jiva Karunyam. Compassion is not just a quality, it is the very natural truth of the soul. Without this, God's light will never shine, either within or outside the soul.
So what is the main goal of Jiva Karunyam?
The central aim is this: all souls are united in truth, and they exist to shine as knowledge of grace. For that purpose, they take human bodies. If they fail to grow spiritually through these bodies, the soul's light remains hidden. Grace will not appear, and ignorance arises. That ignorance becomes bondage for the soul.
Why is the human body so important for this?
Because the body is the means for the soul's growth, but the body is bound by Maya, illusion. From this come hunger, thirst, disease, desire, weakness, fear, and violence. These constantly bring danger to the body. Out of grace, God has given every soul freedom and intelligence to protect itself through awareness and effort.
And what happens if someone fails in this responsibility?
If, through karma or carelessness, a person fails to overcome hunger, thirst, disease, desire, weakness, fear, or violence, then suffering arises. Valalar teaches that other souls, who have awareness and the ability, must help relieve that suffering.
Are all acts of compassion equal, or is there a difference?
There's a difference. Valalar says that removing suffering from thirst, disease, fear, or desire is apara jiva karunyam, a lesser form of compassion. It only gives temporary worldly happiness, but relieving suffering caused by hunger and by killing is para jiva karunyam, the highest compassion. This leads not only to worldly joy, but also divine bliss, unfailing liberation, and eternal union with God.
That's powerful. So what does Valalar want us to actually do?
We must never ignore compassion. If we knowingly withhold help from those who suffer hunger or violence, then God will not grant us the freedom to enjoy either worldly happiness or spiritual liberation. But if we live by Jiva Karunyam, feeding the hungry and preventing the killing of living beings, then we gain the highest benefit: worldly joy, divine bliss, and eternal grace.
So in short, Jiva Karunyam is the direct path to God's grace.
Exactly. Valalar is very clear. Only through compassion can the soul shine in God's light. Feeding the hungry and protecting life is the true practice that leads to grace, immortality, and everlasting union with the divine.
You mentioned earlier that Jiva Karunyam is about relieving suffering, but Valalar lists many kinds of suffering, like hunger, killing, disease, thirst, weakness, fear, and desire. Why does he give special importance to hunger and killing?
That's a very important question. Valalar explains that compassion is of two types: apara jiva karunyam, relieving thirst, disease, fear, weakness, or desire. These are good, but temporary. They only give short-lived worldly relief. But para jiva karunyam, relieving suffering caused by hunger and by killing, is the highest compassion. This is why Valalar emphasizes it again and again.
But why exactly is hunger placed above the others? Isn't thirst, disease, or fear also serious?
Yes, but Valalar explains it very clearly. Take thirst, for example. Water is easily found in rivers, lakes, or ponds. Thirst brings some discomfort, but it doesn't destroy the body immediately. Hunger, on the other hand, if not relieved, can kill. The body cannot last even a single day without food.
That makes sense. And what about desire, weakness, or fear?
Valalar says the same. Desires can be adjusted or controlled over time. Weakness can be endured for days or managed by effort. But hunger cannot be postponed. It demands immediate relief. In fact, even a king who is about to be executed, or a dying patient who knows his end is near, when hunger comes, he forgets his fear or suffering and only seeks food. That shows hunger is the most powerful suffering of all.
And killing, why is that equally important?
Because hunger and killing are connected. Valamar says, when someone relieves hunger with food, naturally he will not allow killing either. If one truly feels compassion for a starving being, he cannot accept the violence of killing another being. Hunger can only be removed by giving food, while killing can be stopped by many means, by law, by guidance, or by mercy.
That is why Valalar repeatedly emphasizes feeding the hungry. If you're compassionate enough to save a being from hunger, you will also save them from the danger of killing. Hunger and killing are like two sides of the same coin. So in short, hunger and killing are the foundation of Jiva Karunyam.
Exactly. Valalar says that even though thirst, disease, desire, weakness, and fear are real sufferings, they all fade when hunger strikes, because the body seeks food first. Therefore, the greatest duty in compassion is to feed the hungry and prevent killing.
That is why Valalar insists again and again. Removing hunger and preventing killing is the highest goal of Jiva Karunyam. By practicing this, we not only give immediate relief in this world, but also open the path to God's eternal grace. That's powerful. So true compassion begins with giving food and protecting life.
Yes, feeding the hungry is not just charity, it is divine duty. Preventing killing is not just kindness, it is the very essence of God's grace. And when we live by this, our soul shines and immortality becomes possible.
You've been talking about Valalar's teaching of Jiva Karunyam. Can you explain why Valalar calls it the main path to God's grace?
Yes. Valalar teaches that Jiva Karunyam, compassion for all living beings, is the highest discipline. It is not just a moral act, it is the very natural truth of the soul. Without compassion, the soul cannot shine, and God's light will never appear within or outside the soul.
So what is the central aim of Jiva Karunyam?
The aim is this: all souls are united in truth, and they exist to realize the knowledge of grace. For that purpose, they take human bodies. If they fail to grow spiritually through these bodies, the soul's light remains hidden. Grace will not manifest, and ignorance arises. That ignorance becomes bondage for the soul.
To help the soul progress, God has given every being freedom and intelligence to protect the body against dangers caused by hunger, thirst, disease, desire, weakness, fear, and violence. If a soul, through karma or carelessness, fails to overcome hunger, thirst, disease, desire, weakness, fear, or violence, then suffering arises. Valalar teaches that other souls who have awareness and the ability must step in with compassion to relieve that suffering. Are all forms of compassion equal?
No. Valalar divides them into two: Opera Jiva Karunyam, relieving thirst, disease, fear, weakness, or desire. These are good but temporary. They only give short-lived worldly relief. But Para Jiva Karunyam, relieving suffering caused by hunger and by killing, is the highest compassion. This leads not only to worldly joy, but also divine bliss, unfailing liberation, and eternal union with God.
Why does Valalar emphasize hunger above all?
Because hunger is the most destructive. Hunger kills the body. Without food, no being can survive even a single day. Thirst can be relieved easily because water is available in rivers, ponds, or lakes. Thirst brings some discomfort, but it doesn't cause immediate destruction. Disease can last for months or years, but still the body survives. Even medicine works only if there is nourishment. So hunger becomes the most urgent danger.
Desire can be adjusted or controlled over time. Weakness and fear can be endured for days or managed by effort, but hunger cannot be postponed. It demands immediate relief. In fact, even a prisoner sentenced to death or a dying patient who knows his end is near, when hunger comes, they forget their fear or suffering and only seek food. Hunger is the sharpest pain, the most urgent suffering.
That is why Valalar says feeding the hungry is the greatest dharma.